Welcome to the Par for the Course Masters of Business Administration plan for our final lesson, Do Not Negotiate Like Phil Mickelson. Welcome and welcome back to Par for the Course. We're here to discuss the Phil Mickelson situation and the Saudi Golf League and the blowback that occurred over the weekend, and all the fallout that is going to come from that, as well as some key statements that came out today on Monday after all that. So stick with me. We'll be right back.
I respect Phil a lot. He's done an unbelievable lot for this game, and he's helped make the PGA Tour where we are now. But as everyone is aware of, on our tour and off our tour, outside the game of golf, Phil believes he's the smartest person in the room a lot of times. And I think some of his comments were, I'll put it this way, I think they were a little bit idiotic, to tell you the truth. I think, some of the statements that he made are lies, are false, or I don't know where he got his information from.
Here on the channel, we like to discuss the business of golf, and this one talks about negotiation tactics. And to be honest, if you're trying to negotiate like Phil Mickelson, don't. That's just don't. Phil made many statements on the record with the Fire Pit Collective, alluding to his awareness of the Saudi regime and how this was a whitewashing of their tactics and how grimy they operate, but also saying this was a one-in-a-lifetime financial situation for himself and a handful of others. The truth is, it sounds like Phil has a bit of a spending problem when you talk about him needing to make certain concessions in his life. All told, Phil's lifetime earnings through the PGA Tour as well as endorsement deals topples $400 million. So take away half of that for taxes. He lives in California, which is the highest tax states in the union. So fine, still he has $200 million that you would say he's pocketed over his lifetime in golf, and that's a lot of money. So for him to have some things that are on the back burner as well in terms of his finances are really questionable. I believe last year he ended up selling his jet. So again, I don't know how Phil spends his money, but the fact that he was making such a push for this in the background really speaks to some of the desperation and then not being necessarily very coy about it. When it comes to negotiations, you either have the leverage or you have a plan. So in his case, he speaks to the PGA Tour having all of the leverage in terms of power, the money, a lot of cash on hand to make some moves that they've done. And to be honest, through some good faith negotiations and maybe even a little bit of the mention of the Saudi Golf League, there have been some concessions made from the PGA Tour, whether it be the PIP program, increases in tournament purses, as well as the FedEx at the end of the season. I think the tour was coming around, but when Phil makes comments on the record, doesn't protect himself, and it comes out that this is what his intention was the entire time, you lose all leverage, and we saw that all topple over this past weekend. And to be honest, it's really ugly to see the direction that it's going. Other players that were mentioned, Bryson, DeChambeau, Dustin, Johnson, as big names as going over to this league, and just kind of that cloud of their names being connected to it did, lend some legitimacy to that. However, when you make it clear that all you're trying to do is negotiate better terms on the PGA Tour, all leverage is out of the door. So I will insert a Wayne quote here, but to be honest, if you're going to negotiate, you got to keep your mouth shut. And Phil just did not do that.
What did you make of Phil's comments earlier in the week?
I don't want to kick someone while he's down, obviously, but I thought they were naive, selfish, egotistical, ignorant. A lot of words to describe that interaction he had with Shipnuck. It was just very surprising and disappointing, sad. And I'm sure he's sitting at home sort of rethinking his position and where he goes from here.
So as mentioned, Phil's mouth might have got him in a pickle where the SGL deal may not even be on the table anymore for him, as the necessity for some quietness and just this kind of all happening in the background has now gone away. And with maybe some players that were committed, decommitting and having to speak out openly, I don't think there's enough star power to go over there and make that deal. I alluded to some questionable activities from Phil. He got into some hot water a handful of years ago with the SEC with some insider trading that was attached to one of the big gamblers in Vegas at the time. It's really close to that situation, as well as some high stakes gambling debts that Phil both owed and has been owed. So Phil isn't exactly the most frugal man as it relates to money. So again, I wonder on the fringes of this, where does Phil's interest lie, and is he needing a payday, or just wanting something to continue to live on that high, end of luxury. But at the end of the day, I think this really blew up over the weekend and in Phil's face, with him being the messenger behind it, or at least kind of in the back scenes. I believe it was rumored that he supplied some lawyers along with some other players to go against the PGA and set up the tour terms for the SGL. So really had his hands in the mix. It's interesting that Phil has been quiet since, at least on Twitter, since the 11th of February. And to be honest, hasn't made any public statements as of the filming of this video. And to be honest, that's just not Phil. He's out there speaking his mind pretty frequently on things. So you do wonder, has the PGA already had a discussion with Phil in the background? They are not forthcoming with their discipline typically. He hasn't played the last two tournaments. There's no mention of injury on the Phil Mickelson camp. So missed the Waste Management in his home state of Arizona, at least where he went to college, and then missed Riviera, which he typically does not miss either. So some notable absences from Phil in the mix of all this. So we'll see where things go. I want to rewind back to a couple weeks ago during the Waste Management, where Charlie Hoffman had a blow up and went on Instagram and ultimately said this is why players are seeking out another league to play in, because the PGA Tour isn't protecting its current athletes. And then we fast forward to where we landed today. There's a lot of mention of golfers being independent contractors. And let's talk about how that works in the real world. We'll put aside the PGA aspect of it, but talking about what comes with being an independent contractor, and honestly how PGA Tour pros who have a decent career going kind of have it a lot better than most independent contractors. Independent contractors typically don't retain many rights, or they get typically a higher rate of pay because the company that is supporting them is not having to pay for insurance, typically retirement benefits. It is a very much a you're kind of a wild card. Yes, you get to go and come as you please, and if another opportunity comes up that's better for you, cool, you can jump ship for that. However, versus being like a W-2 or an employee of the company, you do get a lot of the kind of built-in advantages of being a long-term employee. They have your commitment to work, and you have certain commitments from your employer to work as well. On the PGA Tour, they have a really good player incentive program around retirement that they benefit from making a cut, that some funds go into their retirement account, as well as from the FedEx Cup. So there's a lot of retirement money that these PGA Tour pros are stacking up, and no one's gonna say that life on the PGA Tour is easy, but it's also reaped with financial rewards as well. I found an article on MarketWatch.com, and they were mentioning the amount of players that have certain increments of money stacked up in this program. And again, this is a few years ago, but at that time there were over 400 players that had $1 million vested into the retirement club program, and 114 that had over $3 million into that program. That's a pretty good retirement for these tour pros who have grinded it out. And this program has been in place since 1983. Not to mention, around that time or a few years before that, the PGA Tour Champions was set up as another safety net for touring pros to kind of continue playing the game that they love and continue to collect some checks. And while the purses out there are not the same, it's not bad money for them to be doing what they love to do. And they can pick their schedule. It's very similar to how it is now, in terms of being able to pick your schedule. Even though with the wraparound season, it feels like golf is hot and heavy throughout the year, there are many advantages that they can claim as a PGA Tour pro that many independent contractors do not.
There was a lot of action this week. There was a lot of momentum and noise this week. Why was that? Why was it this week? Do you think that so much happened? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I've no idea. Again, I know the way these guys have operated, and it's all been smoke and mirrors, and they've created rumors and spread rumors and tried to play one guy off another guy and said one thing to one manager and a different thing to another manager, and it's just sort of created this chaos and confusion around that group, and everyone's questioning everyone else's motives. So they've just sort of played everyone off one another. And I think it's nice now that we all, can sit down and say, look, we're all on the same page here. Yes, are there things that the tour could do better and are working on? Of course, but that's the same in any business, in any sports league around the world. They're all trying to get better, just as the PGA Tour are. So,
I mentioned earlier in the video the aspect of leverage, and you either have a plan or you have the power. And so, I wonder if some of these PGA Tour pros kind of overplayed their hand and took the PGA for granted. Again, yeah, the grinded out week-to-week lifestyle of playing, practicing, and kind of hitting the road for the next week is grueling. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty nice lifestyle financially, and you can really get a big payoff from that. So I really think that when you look at other competing leagues that are already out there, European Tour, I love golf. I watch golf incessantly. Asian Tour, when it's, middle of the night and I'm just happen to randomly be up, I will actually tune into those tours. But when you look at the courses that they play, there aren't many comparisons week to week to the PGA Tour. They just cannot compete. So as it relates to competing tours and this Saudi Golf League coming into play, there would have been no way from a revenue standpoint for the SGL to keep up with it as it relates to bringing in revenue. It strictly would have been, as most people have pointed out, a way for the Saudi regime to cleanse its record through sports, because it wasn't going to make money on this model. Paying aging and past their prime players exorbitant amounts of money to come over to their league isn't going to bring the eyeballs consistently 3 years, 4 years down the line. Yes, it would have gotten some initial buzz. Yes, some networks would have picked it up, absolutely. But the payouts would not have been the same. And so you wonder, okay, as it relates to competing leagues, when you get something that has been doing it well for so long, like you can count on the PGA Tour like clockwork to show up. You know what production value you're getting. You know the type of player that you're getting. You know the quality of the product. It's easy for us to sit back and take those things for granted over time. And I think the players seem to have fallen into that as well. I get it. We're in a capitalistic society. No one is faulting that it is what it is, and that's cool. Everybody wants to get their money, but at what cost? And then how much is too much? When can you overplay your hand to the point where you've now embarrassed yourself? So I do wonder if Phil even gives a damn about rehabbing his image. I know he's come back from a couple of other incidents, kind of some follies, some rough statements. He is a personable guy, and this isn't to prosecute Phil. You hear about some of the good deeds and how great he is with fans, and we love that, and that's why I think Phil gets a pass sometimes.
So give me, all right, so who's the best tipper that's ever rolled?
Phil
there?
Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson.
All day.
All day.
What does Phil grease you with? I
Oh
mean,
man,
like,
if he
what's
win
the-
3,000,
3,100.
3,100, and they share between 7 guys.
And when he didn't win, or if he didn't make the cut, it was still 1,500.
It's still, yeah, it was a full week's work. And
Phil Mickelson.
I don't know how easily he comes back from this. Do I doubt that he's gonna, do I think he's gonna end up in the doldrums of the PGA and with his reputation fully in the trash? No. The news cycle moves too quickly for things like this to kind of stick around for a long time. Phil will be able to get an interview and kind of clean up his image and rehab some things. I do anticipate that happening. So let me know what you think. Get down in the comments. I'm very interested in your perspective of how the Saudi Golf League would have played out. I do think it's dead in the water. Let me know. Do you think Phil's going to be able to rehab his image? Also, speak to that. If you think I'm wrong somewhere, or just, your experience in business, or if you have a differing perspective, would love to hear it. Also, while you're here, go ahead and check out a couple of our other videos that we have on the channel that talk about the business of golf. Talk to you soon. We'll catch you on the next one.